This morning, I'm very humble to be in your midst. I want to thank God for this opportunity. I pray that we are going to be blessed in this session. Thank you. Thank you very much. So from the counseling perspective, I want us to, there's a presentation that I will be projecting, so I'll go through it very fast and then we come to the session. So I am a counseling psychologist, the moderator has said, and I'll be focusing on the psychological effects of COVID, and also I'll be able to talk about the role of NYM in mitigating some of these psychological effects. So we all know that as a country, we've been in this situation for almost 10 months now, but for the countries where it started, it's now 1 year because it started in December. So most of the time we've been shown on television and other social media about the physical symptoms. We know of the symptoms that we need to look out for, the chill, the cough, all those. But rarely do we take time to look at the psychological effect of what COVID-19 is causing to every person that is going through this. Even with the numbers that are being reported, they only focus on the sick, the people that have been infected. But if we were to look at the numbers of people that have been affected psychologically, I think every one of us can attest to this, that we are all affected. We can say that COVID-19 has brought with us a psychological crisis. So we are in a psychological crisis because many people are living in fear, many people are living in anxiety, and this anxiety is because of the uncertainty. We don't know where we are going. We don't know for how long we're in this state. You also find that other than the anxiety of the unknown, we are also isolating ourselves very much. Looking at the guidelines, we were told to social distance, but most of us are doing what we call social isolation. So we end up isolating ourselves too much, and when we are isolated, people are going through what we call loneliness. So that is another psychological effect. Kindly, the media, keep on running the slides. So some of the psychological challenge, you find they are going through loneliness. We can also say that our frontline workers, who are the medics, go through what we call compassion fatigue. But in this context, I want to focus on our pastors, on our leaders. You find that when our members are struggling psychologically, the first person we call is our pastors. So I'm very sure our pastors are also going through what we call compassion fatigue. And who is taking care of our pastors? We look at that. I also want to say that there is a lot of low self-esteem issues. If you take time and interact with people and realize the way they're behaving, people have lost their esteem. Reason being, a lot of us found validation in different things. We found validation in our works. We found our validation, we found our validation in our families. But looking at what is happening, you find that our families are in crisis, so I have nothing to identify with. Maybe I've lost my job. I have nothing to identify with. And therefore, people are losing their esteem because nothing is validating them, their identity, their sense of belonging. It's very important that we need to change our look on ourselves and find true identity, not identifying ourselves in the things that we've been doing. There's social stigma around us because of the disease. Just from the first patient when it was reported, a lot of people got into fear, and the way it was presented, it caused a lot of stigma. And therefore, it has affected people in a way of going for testing. You find many people fear going for testing because of how people are going to take them. When the issues of quarantine, when the issue of contact tracing came, we all were fearful because no one wanted their families to go through that kind of treatment. Therefore, it caused the stigma. Maybe that was the only way the government could have done, but we never looked at the psychological effect of those processes as we were doing the social tracing and the quarantine. Loss and grief is a psychological effect to this pandemic we are in. I can say for sure that we are all grieving. If there's anyone in our midst who has not lost anything, just carry up your hand. We've lost a lot of things. It's either you've lost your loved ones, you've lost your health, or someone, your relative, is battling with this disease or any other disease due to their health. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe you're anticipating to lose your job. Your business is going down. Your marriage is shaking. That is a loss. So we are all grieving, but we don't have time to go through the grieving process because things are too fast for us. And therefore, you find people are postponing the grieving process. This might come back later. Maybe 10 years down the line, you'll find people going through what we call complicated grieving. Work-life balance is also a psychological challenge. People are struggling, balancing between work and normal life. Families are suffering because now the fear of losing our jobs. We have to put our energy in doing this work, and therefore we miss out on other activities. Some people were very happy when we started working from home. We thought we'll have time to do other things. But it's like people have carried their offices to their homes again because now they're working too much compared to the way you'll work in the office, thinking of traffic jam. Now you're in the house and you can work through. You end up not being able to balance your work, to balance life. We have relationship conflicts, and this I can say that it's not just in our families, even in our churches. You see the conflicts arising by how members are relating to each other, conflicts between leaders and members, even conflicts between pastors and leaders. So this is because of the unprocessed tension, the tension that we have caused by this pandemic. I want to say addiction is also another thing that we are also going through as a nation. Pastor talked about the addiction of the teenagers getting into social media. Yes, this is very, very on the high rise. Teenagers and other young people are getting into addiction on social media. And not only social media, but specific things like pornography. There's addiction to betting, addiction to sex, addiction to work. You become a workaholic. So we are also going through this. And it is a psychological challenge. If not checked, we might end up getting into mental health problems. We have depression. Normally, when you look at the signs of depression, we say it has to last for at least a minimum of 2 weeks. Ask yourself, the way you've been feeling, you've gone through to 10 months. How are you mentally? You could be depressed, who knows? It is important for us to have these sessions so that we're able to understand what are the signs to look out for when it comes to a depression. And lastly, we can say that there are a lot of deaths related to suicide. And it's because of depression. If it's not picked up very fast, you find people just committing suicide. And this is not just to the worldly people. This is happening in our church. So I want to say that there is no health without mental health. We could be in our houses avoiding walking outside because we don't want to be infected. But if we are not taking care of our mental health, we as well as ill people. So maybe let me just define what mental health is, because I'm saying we need to emphasize mental health as a church. So according to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being where individuals, you and me, need to recognize my potential. Am I aware of my potential? I'm able to cope normally with the stresses of life, because there'll be stress in life, yeah? Then you also be able to work productively and fruitfully and make an impact in your society. So this is the definition of who a mental health person is. So you can assess yourself and see, are you living within your potential? Are you productive? Are you making an impact? Yeah. So once you know that mental health is a major problem that has been caused by, we can't really say it has been caused by COVID. These issues have been there. It's only that COVID has been like a wake-up call. It has opened up everything, and now we can see what is happening in our families. So how can I tell that I have maybe mental health challenges? I'm not looking at the mental health, the disorders, the schizophrenia, the depression, the anxiety disorders. I'm just looking at the normal mental health problems. Some of the signs, we can say that look at your eating and sleeping patterns. So start thinking about your way of life, your eating and sleeping patterns. If they have been affected in the last maybe 1 month or even the 10 months you have had this problem, it's either you sleep too much or you've lost your sleep, you lack sleep, you're eating too much or you're not eating. That is one indication. Another sign is isolation. Are you isolating yourself too much? Are your relatives, your church members, are they isolating themselves? They want to withdraw. That is another red flag. Levels of energy. You can tell as you wake up. Are you pushing yourself just to do things, to go to work, or you still have the energy that you had? Having unexplained pains and what we call aches. You find people complaining of headaches, stomachache, backache. You go for checkup, there's nothing. So these unexplained aches are also an indication that there's something happening in your mental health. Feeling hopeless and helpless is also a major sign. It is okay to feel worried. It is okay to be anxious. But when you get to a point whereby you're helpless, it means you've lost option. You're giving up. There's nothing you're holding on to. You don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. That is an indication that you're struggling mentally. Getting into drugs, maybe you've not been doing drugs, or someone you know has been doing drugs, but they're now doing it more than they used to. That is something we need not to ignore and say he's just used to drinking. No, that is a red flag. You're also feeling confused. I don't know if people are experiencing this. You're so confused. You keep on forgetting things. You're angry. You're just on the edge, waiting to be triggered. And you see people exploding. You wonder, I just told this person to do this, but the way they're behaving, it's like something else is being projected. So these are some of the signs. For parents, you can also notice that this time a lot of parents are struggling with their children. You keep on yelling and causing fights in the house. It's very important to know that yelling, if you're to look at the issue that the child has done, it has nothing to do with that. You're projecting your anger, your frustration to your children. Experiencing mood swings, being with persistent thoughts that you can't get out of your head, hearing voices and believing in things that do not exist. These are just but signs of a mental health person. You may not be in the severe, but there are signs that you need to be on the lookout. And maybe being unable to even perform daily activities. Like,
how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected Quakers with reference to social concerns and psychological issues? So Edith, how has it happened? How has COVID-19 affected Quakers specifically in relation to psychological and social concerns?
Okay, so COVID-19 has affected Quakers. As I was talking to general, everyone, but I want to say the psychological effects that I've indicated in the beginning are the challenges that we are facing as Quakers, as individuals, as families. So you find that as much as we are restricted to coming to church in large numbers, so many people are following sermons online, but you find that a lot of people are going through what we call withdrawal challenges. They're isolating themselves, and it's because of the stress level that they're going through. So looking at those psychological effects is what we are going through as Quakers. We are not exempted because we are Christians. We are struggling mentally. That's all that I can say.
Thank you. So I think Quakers, like other Kenyans, we have faced the same challenges. We have lost jobs. We fear that the next person next to you will infect you. We fear that the lifestyle of our family members will bring in the problem. challenges in holding our nominations on time. We had challenges on how we attended our services. And so the effect was across board. Now hear from members. How have you been affected socially and psychologically by the COVID-19 pandemic, so that our experts can give us more insight into what is going on?
Thank you. Yeah, so to begin with the first question, if it is ethically okay to give results, COVID results over the phone, from where I'm standing, I would say that it is unethical, because calling me and telling me that you've tested positive, you've not catered for my psychological reaction. One thing, this is a loss I'm going to experience. It's a loss of my health. Just like any person will be called and told you have cancer. So I'll go through what we call loss and grief. It needs to be, if I've come for counseling, and I've seen this with many now organizations embracing psychological support, they invite the professionals to do what we call debriefing. They prepare they prepare that person or the group of people that needs to get their results. They are debriefed on what to expect. And then when they're given the results, they're also taken through the same process whereby you want to hear how they feel and just find out where they are, so that you're able to ensure that you're releasing this person who is in a stable condition. So normally, when you call me and tell me that, the first thing, I'll get into shock. As a person, I'll be shocked, and you see when you're shocked, you do different things. There are those who scream, there are those who become numb, there are those who become violent. You need to think about that. After getting shocked, I'll be angry. I'll get angry because that's a normal loss. I'll get angry with the person who is calling me. I'll be angry with the people in my house because I'll think that they're the ones who've caused. I'll get into anger. From there, I'll start now bargaining. It is not something you do in one day. You might go through those stages for several days. But what I'm saying is, before you get to the acceptance stage, that yes, I have this disease, you need to go through a series of phases, which we call grieving stages. So calling may not be, it's okay, I know my status, but you've affected me mentally, unless you are sure that someone else will come in to support this person psychologically. Another thing, you talked about the processes of depression. So depression is a mental health disorder. It is a mood disorder. And some of the signs that we look out for depression, we say, number one is extreme sadness. If someone is generally sad, and these signs should have been there for at least 2 weeks. Not that if you do something to me today and I'm sad, you say I'm depressed. No, it should have been there for at least 2 weeks. So sadness, inability to perform normal duties. You also find that not doing things that you enjoy doing. You no longer feel like doing those things. You feel tired, fatigued most of the time. You feel a sense of worthlessness. You also feel suicidal most of the time. So these are just but some of the signs that we check out in depression. So you've asked the support I've given to the Friends Church. I would say that I have not been able to go out to the entire Friends Church, but I've begun this in my Langata local church, where we've introduced, we have a topical issue in relation to mental health before the preacher comes in, just to help people relate with what they're going through. Another thing, we are also doing a lot of training and allowing people to ask questions. So the reason why I thought we need to come in, the reason why I really appreciate this session is we're able now to reach out to all Quakers, because yes, we want to grow spiritually, but if I'm struggling mentally, then it means I may not be able to grow, and even thinking of what is my pastor going through, because my work as a member is just to offload my challenges, my troubles to the pastors. How are they surviving? So we've started at Langata local meeting doing mental health talks and some of the recommendations that I've given in my presentation.
Thank you. So just as a follow-up, advise us, those who test and deliver the results. How should we deliver the COVID results to the patients?
Okay, for For those who test, I know there's also the medical aspects. They also have their guidelines. Now, from the psychological aspect, I would advise that if people are going to be given, have been tested, it is important to, and that's why it's important to integrate the psychological support in any form of treatment. So I'll suggest that in any hospital, in any organization that is sending their people for testing, ensure that you have a professional therapist or counseling psychologist who can come in to first debrief the members before they are given their results, and then after they have been given the results, we also need to take them through the process so that when they're leaving, we are not sending people to early graves because of the stresses involved in that.
So the issue is, how do we parent from the small ones to the middle ages to the elder ones? It is a challenge to all of us. Welcome.
Okay, for the parents, I want to say that, as I said earlier, COVID-19 was just a wake-up call to us. Some of the challenges we are going through has been there. It's only that we've been busy, not noticing them, but now we are in the house and we're able to see what is happening. So one thing I'll say to parents is, number one, we need to be aware. What we call self-awareness is very important, because you could be very busy trying to bring up this child and help this child, but you're also not aware of what you're going through as a parent. So the first thing is to look inwardly at yourself, because you could be the one projecting this and making your children to react that way. So once you are aware of yourself, be real and know your struggles and your fears and the challenges you're going through as a person, and try to come to terms with what is happening. Number two, once you are at a good place as a person, as an individual, then it is important to first understand what is going on in terms of, do you understand COVID-19 and its implication on us as a person? Because you cannot talk to people if you don't have that information with yourself. Understand exactly, then be able to talk to these children in an appropriate age. You don't just scare them with just with information that is going to threaten them. You give them age-friendly information by letting them understand that we are living in this pandemic, and what is causing the pandemic. Let them understand. If you tell them you're not going to play outside, as a parent, provide an alternative. You can't tell a child, sit in the house, and you leave them with gadgets. At the same time, you don't want them to use the gadgets. Provide alternatives to those plays. Be creative as a parent. Another thing is, children is monkey see, monkey do. So most of us as parents, we say, don't do this. But daddy is so immersed in the phone. Someone is in the laptop. Whatever we are doing right now, our children are able to observe, and they do exactly what we do. So we need to parent from awareness. We need to be mindful of every action we do as a parent, because the children learn by observing, but not by hearing. They'll hear, yes, but they pick a lot when they observe what elders or adults are doing. With the adults, you talked about the elders. These elders, I want to assume, are now elderly in age. They also need to be given information on what is happening. Yeah, they need to be given, and let them suggest ways of how to manage themselves. But if you're able to manage the children, the adults are able to fit in. So the biggest challenge we have right now is the children. How do we manage our children? So let's all be creative. Let's enjoy this parenting process, because we've been so busy working and doing other things. So I think God has created a chance for us to go back home and ask ourselves, where can we change and do it right? If we have a very shaky family, that is why we are seeing a lot of challenges in our churches. Yeah, so.
Thank you. So children are monkey see, monkey do, and therefore as adults we avoid monkey business. Let me go to our third question, and I will request Sister Edith to be the first one to give it a try. That is, what is the place of pastors and leaders in mitigating the effects and levels of preparedness of the pandemic in a collaborative way? Sister Edith. What is the role of leaders and pastors? How should leaders and pastors collaborate to ensure there is better preparedness for mitigation purposes?
Okay. So the role of the pastors and leaders in mitigating these, like focusing on the psychological effect, I would say that it is important as a church from the leadership side first to look at the pastors. Before we even look at their roles, we need to look at them and see how well are we taking care of their mental health. And these are some of the things that I've come up with, that as a church we need to entrench the psychosocial support program in our constitution. I know we have the social commission, which I happen to be a member in my local church, but under the social commission we deal with social issues, but we assume the pastors are going to take care of the psychological issues. So one way of incorporating this component into our constitution is ensure that our pastors go through what we call psychological counseling skills training. I appreciate our pastors have done pastoral counseling, and they've done a lot in terms of counseling our members, but we need that aspect of the psychological counseling, even at a basics level, so that when members run to pastors to share their personal issues and their struggles, pastors are able to even be able to assess, to be able to pick out some of the mental health challenges and be able to refer them. Because not all issues are spiritual issues. It is good to pray. I'm a Christian, I believe in prayer. We need to pray as we go through the psychological support or even medical intervention. Another aspect is we need to incorporate the counseling services under the constitution for our pastors especially, and of course our leaders too. But I'm keen on our pastors because if our pastors are mentally healthy, the effects trickle down to the members of the church. So with this counseling services aspect, our pastors will be able to be real with themselves if they feel they're also struggling, because they carry heavy burdens of their members. They also have personal issues. So if they get to a level and they feel that they're struggling, they can be able to reach out and get psychological support from an external person. It doesn't have to be a member of the church for confidentiality purposes, but we get someone who is trained to be able to be working with our pastors. Most of the time as leaders, we focus on looking at how pastors are preaching, and we say we have a good pastor or not, but we rarely take time to assess their mental health. So it is very important for us to look at those two components. Another key component that I would talk about as a role of the leaders and the pastor is to relook at the component of premarital counseling. I think as Friends Church, we are doing premarital counseling, yes, but I would request that we take a closer look at the manual that we are using, because you find that if our families are struggling, and they're struggling because the foundation is not well equipped. Many people who go for premarital counseling, you find them struggling within the first 2 months. Would say that as NYM, we need to look at the manual and standardize. Be sure what is being done in Langata is the same thing done in Buruburu. We need to look at the content. The challenge, the current or modern challenge of couples is not the same as the traditional couple challenges that they had before. So we need to relook at the content. We need to relook at the people that are taking our members through counseling. I know as a commission, as a NYM, we have very few registered pastors to officiate marriages. Just like that, we can also identify very few pastors and they be trained in premarital counseling, so that as NYM we know we have 10 or 20 registered premarital counselors. The reason why, I know people are wondering why I'm so keen on marriages and we are talking about COVID, it's because during this period, our fallback could have been the family. But we are struggling because our families are also shaking. If I lose my job, I can't run to my family. I may not run to my spouse because he's not supportive. So if we look at the family as a church, and then try bring up stable families from that premarital stage, we'll be able to solve some of these. We'll be able to mitigate some of these psychological challenges that you are going through.